Hello there, this is Cassia,
And this is Coden.
and welcome to The Ebon Hawk, a podcast where we discuss the Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic games, as well as all things Star Wars. Today we'll be talking episodes 7 and 8 of The Mandalorian with For Mandalore, aka T-Bob and Nick. We'll discuss Taika Watiti directing rumors and answer a viewer question. This is episode 13, and this is where the level 1313 begins. So for Mandalore, do you guys want to introduce yourselves?
Yeah, what's up? My name is T-Bob Abear. I host a radio show down in South Louisiana, and that is where I met this guy.
I am Nick Ashton, turn on T-Bob's radio show and hopefully working my way back up field. But for now, me and T-Bob are chopping it up here in the lab, talking all things The Mandalorian and Star Wars on our own podcast format.
So Nick is I have actually never played KOTOR, unfortunately. Huge gap in my own Star Wars experience that there is no great excuse for because I love Star Wars games. But Nick is a KOTOR expert. We both
that's great.
We were hyped for Mandalorian, and we wanted really dive in, like do a podcast where we talk about the episodes, and knew that Nick's KOTOR knowledge, which seems to be becoming more some of the things that are being done, and then I've seen all like Clone Wars, going through Rebels right now, so yeah, we're just big Star Wars fans. It's a lot of fun. Nick's a decade younger than me, though. Wow. Wow. Unreal.
Yeah, hopefully I don't have to like relearn all my lore with remakes, but I guess that's a conversation for later.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, I mean, are confirmed. Yeah, definitely doesn't mean the whole thing is, but I don't know. It's a good time. We're I'm also, I guess I should say, I'm a bit of a Star Wars fanboy. I don't really dislike any of it. I just like some of it less than I like other parts of it. I really do like all Star Wars.
That's a good place to be.
Yeah, no, I was really hoping with that with the new Star Wars, but it's like, there's those bits and pieces that dig into you, but overall, I'm still just excited that we're still seeing new Star Wars content, and I've been really impressed with at least some of it, and so I'm excited to see what our future has with Star Wars.
Yeah,
I would point out to T-Bob a lot when we were in the middle of our breakdowns, just to kind of stop and take a look at the content we're getting and the rate that we're getting that content. I mean, at one point, I think this was near the beginning of our podcast, we were having The Mandalorian, we were having Fallen Order drop, and we were having in like a week, if not few days span, and I just like had to like sit in awe of that for like a few like minutes, just leave like through all the waves of content we've been in our lives. This is the most inundated and arguably one of the best quality runs of content really experienced in our lifetimes.
I mean, and you got like Rebels, which is fantastic. You got the final Clone Wars season on the horizon, which they put resources in, so it's gonna be. And they also, like, we were talking off air before we started recording, Code, and you were about how, like, with Clone Wars and with Rebels, because it's a kid show, there's already these like ancillary adventure episodes or these little side pieces. But as that show goes deeper in its run, it's almost like a Trojan horse. It just kind of transfers into being full, like good Star Wars, like great Star Wars. And so they do that same thing with Rebels. I feel like now with this final season of Clone Wars, they can like
there's something. They
can start. They don't have to worry about making the ancillary children.
Absolutely,
yeah. They're making this.
They have
it's
years
all
of
epic.
experience with that.
Yeah, they're making it for the huge Star Wars fans. So it is going to be epic. So yeah, I think blessed Star Wars time. And even though the Obi-Wan show's going through some stuff, you still have Ewan McGregor attached to an Obi-Wan television show.
So speaking of being blessed with good Star Wars content, let's discuss the finale, aka episode 7 and 8 of The Mandalorian. So chapter 7, it's called The Reckoning, and it was directed by Deborah Chow, who is going to be over the Kenobi show, and it was written by Jon Favreau. And it was released a couple days before Rise of Skywalker. So when this one began, 2-sentence summary, or maybe a paragraph summary, the Mandalorian returns to Navarro at the behest of Grief Karga, and it's obviously a trap. It's a trap, guys, And they're like, we want the baby, and then everything will be good. And the Mando is like, I need a team before I go back. So they bring back Cara Dune and Quill. So episode 7, what did you guys think?
Oh man, there's so much to unpack.
Yeah. I mean, I love, first off, Cara Dune and Quill are top-notch characters.
No doubt. Unbelievable acting by Cara.
I love Gina Carano.
She's phenomenal. Probably one of the best Star Wars characters we've seen in recent memory.
A very good piece of casting to me. In the background, very much makes her look like the badass that she is. Like when she looks better than whoever even the stunt guy for Mando is. She is out there beat ass. And I got one daughter right now, and I got another daughter on my way. And that one thing I've always loved about Star Wars, Leia and Rey. I love Rey, and now characters like Cara Dune that she can look up to if she just wants a kicks ass. So and then Nick Nolte, I think, does a spectacular. Whoever wrote Quill wrote really impressive lines where he talks about droids just being a neutral reflection of their owners, and then his whole "I have spoken" catch line. I love the team that Mando has assembled here.
I think all of those elements for Quill, T-Bob, like you said, are very, very important to establishing his character. But I think you really got to hand it to Nick Nolte for playing Quill, unlike anybody else. I mean, I really could not imagine another actor voicing that character.
So wait, Cassie, do you know Nolte voiced Quill? Who was there somebody in the suit, and then I think the face was animatronic? I don't know. That's what I'm guessing. Does anybody have any?
I think that for some of it they had makeup on top of Nick Nolte for some of it, and then for some of the shots, I think they had a little person.
That makes sense. That makes sense. That's the old Lord of the Rings Peter Jackson technique.
Yeah,
right? They did some crazy trick. Make hobbits and dwarves work. But yeah, so I mean, I think first off, one thing I love about this too, so if you haven't done this, I'd recommend it to anybody. Watching episodes as if they're one long movie is a lot of fun.
I should do that.
It's a good movie too.
It's a really good action star, and it's a classic. We call it a classic Dave Filoni too. Whether it's Clone Wars or Rebels, he loves ending and beginning with great kind of multi-episode, almost mini movies. And this was, he nailed this.
I think we had someone on the podcast, T-Bob. I think Jesse was he the one that said that it might be a 2-part, or was that you?
No, that was me. That was
okay.
I actually did this when I showed this to some family of mine, where I skipped one episode. I skipped the episode where the Mandalorian goes and does kind of that bounty contract where they rescue the Twi'lek. And
the Prison Break.
The Prison Break.
Prison Break's actually pretty. The Prison Break's really good. The only one I really didn't like with the young bounty. Sorry, Coden. What were you saying though?
Oh yeah, I think for me when I was kind of going through this point, or start to finish watching all the Mandalorian episodes, was we skipped that particular one because it didn't quite contribute to the like the overall story. Like it was good on its own, but the episode started to kind of feel that way, especially with that episode. And so show the series as like one cohesive story, we left that one out while we did kind of all of them at once.
And then and that is interesting. We've talked about that a lot, right? It definitely feels like there's two different types of shows here where, some of them are like basically moving that main story along. And then to me, I don't know if y'all have ever watched Firefly, but some just kind of like feel like Firefly episodes, right? Yeah. You get a mission, you make a little money there. Maybe there's like a little bit to advance the story, but I actually found that I enjoyed that because, I liked what I was watching. I think that is one of the advantages that a TV show has over a movie. If you have almost like a short story you want to write or a side adventure, that can be fun. Yeah, I think that can be a lot of fun. Now that said, definitely the one with the young bounty hunter. So yeah, I'm not saying that they're always going to hit on those, but for the most part, the Prison Break one is a really fun self-contained adventure.
Yeah, T diced that up, and we were talking about a pattern we were seeing. I think this was earlier on in our experience doing the podcast, but we kind of broke down. Okay, we've seen this episode go. Episode 1 was very plot. Episode 2, not as much. Episode 3, point. I was kind of posing the question to you as, what would we see? Would we see a pattern that's like really clear and defined, or would we see more sporadic movement? I think it got a little bit more sporadic, but I think either way, you're going to.
There was a large gap before they moved the main plot forward. So you were talking about Code, and I agree.
Like a little 2 or 3 episode sequence, but I think in either instance, I think you enhance the plot, even if you're not really doing actions in the episode, because you get a little bit more sentimental feelings for the characters. You feel like you've been on an adventure with them.
Yeah, until you learn their quirks, right? Until you learn their, grow those bonds. Like I loved Cara Dune because I saw them escape that village together when they were chilling back in the day. And so I mean it's really nice to see TV Star Wars with a lot of money and behind it.
It's so great. It's
really cool. Have you seen the behind the scenes pictures of like it was all filmed on a soundstage and how they did that?
I have heard about this, and I love behind the scenes. I'm a huge making of guy. I love all that. So I definitely need to look this up because it seems like they used like very creative, like Imagineer Disney solutions to up the production value.
Yeah, I kind of wonder if like Jon Favreau, if like he's like, okay, I'll do Lion King, but we're gonna use this technology to advance, the Mandalorian or something.
I mean, look, I don't now. I mean, Favreau is hip with Star Wars, so like, I wouldn't put anything past him in terms of his ambitions for because I mean, if I mean, I'll never forget back in the day, Favreau was one of the ones really pushing Kevin Feige's idea, or whoever had the original idea, shared Marvel universe, like when he made Iron Man.
I think it was Kevin Feige.
No, I think Feige was. I think that was his brainchild. But Favreau, as the director of Iron Man, was very much on board and kind of pound. I remember that original Comic-Con when they were talking about Iron Man. He was like, "Yeah, and it sounded so crazy at the time, but you look now." So I guess that's all to say. Who knows what kind of ambitious ideas Favreau and Filoni, and I always forget the third partner's name. It's bad of me, but who knows what kind of ideas they have cooking.
Kathleen Kennedy, is that the third?
No. It's another female though. She's a producer on I can't remember. No, Kennedy still has the overall controls, and I know a lot of people are on the fence about Kennedy. There's been getting involved productions a few times, Rogue One, Solo. Even now, this Obi-Wan thing's on hold indefinitely. That said, I haven't disliked the end products of those. I've actually liked them. So the ends justify the means. I don't know. I think it is a bit ironic that Kathleen Kennedy and Disney seem to get very involved in the director's visions for these movies. And the whole reason why George Lucas owned movie studio was because he hated studios
Yeah, now it's the studio is kind of dictating everything. It's kind of
it is a little
ironic. So
yes, for George, it must feel a bit. He is Obi-Wan. He trained up Anakin, and then Anakin went full dark side. Bob Iger's the emperor back there, but
the world will be owned by Disney.
I actually really like Kennedy, but I don't know. It's
yeah. So we haven't talked about something very important, the Baby Yoda of it all. In episode 7, we see the first on-screen overtly Force heal in episode 7. What did you guys think of that? It was bringing something back from Legends.
I don't know exactly. I mean, I like the idea of Force heal because of what I know about the Force. Like, as I understand it, it doesn't feel like a disconnect or a reach to me. I think that you have to be supremely powerful. And so I think that we have to keep someone of Yoda's race do it, who we don't know much about Yoda's race, but I think we can assume that they are incredibly force. And then we've seen like Rey do it. So you're talking about, two of the most powerful force users that we've ever seen. Like, I don't think that this is a power that will become, I could be wrong here. I don't think it's a power common to your lesser force wielders.
And I think Cassie and Cody, I think you guys would appreciate kind of the bridge this makes to KOTOR, because that is kind of a level up power that you and not seeing it as represented in different media that we've had in the past, whether it be movies or TV shows. I think seeing that making a real theatrical TV show, whatever you want to call it, bridge into something you can see actors do, I think that does a lot for in-game experience of KOTOR, because it's not just like, oh, I'm pressing a button and this aura is now around me and I'm better. It's like I kind of get what is going on right there.
So that sounds like it's actually more common than I'm giving it in terms of, and that would make sense because really the majority of the live action Star Wars we've is with a Star Wars where they've kind of lost the techniques, right? Like the original trilogy is kind of like the Dark Ages. So they're back to like the Force basics. So like in KOTOR, most Jedi have that ability.
It's like a level, and you guys might know this off the top of your heads. Level like 5 power, maybe.
Yeah, and like any Jedi character can unlock it. So
yeah, if you go to the base on Korriban and pick a fight with the Dark Jedi, they'll probably use Force heal on themselves.
Okay. So hell yeah. So it's pretty common. Okay, yeah. So maybe I'm wrong, and maybe this is kind of the rediscovering of ancient knowledge.
Yeah,
but I guess this is all to say that Baby Yoda can.
One thing that I really liked about how they portray Force heal in both the Mandalorian and in the Disney trilogy is that depending on how much you're force healing, you're making that trade. You're making a trade of a little bit of your own energy. With Baby Yoda, it caused him to pass out, and with Rey and Kylo Ren, they're literally like trading their life force because they're bringing people back from the dead essentially, and
which is another KOTOR 2 power.
Yeah.
By the sea.
Really?
Yeah, you can. It's like I don't know what it's called in the game, but you can sacrifice your vitality points to increase your force points.
Oh, okay.
And it's nice because I think otherwise it would have been just this giant, I want to say like Ex Machina moment where it's just like, oh, of course, yep, they can force heal now, but it really gives you that idea that when these Jedi, they want to do this for somebody, they have to make that hard decision of this could be detrimental to myself to help this other person. And it shows kind of that level of selflessness in the act itself, which I really like.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's got Full Metal Alchemist, like everything has a price, right? Like a little bit of balance. Also, I think that it's really cool playing KOTOR. That y'all almost have this historical anchor to grab on to where it does feel like rediscovered knowledge, like the ancient techniques are being brought back.
I love kind of piecing together that lore, especially how much of it even technically exists.
Yeah, a lot of people are surprised, but I'm like, it's in KOTOR, it's fine, you know?
Right, exactly.
Well, exactly, and I was a bit surprised, but this makes
So I mean, Coden, I want to ask you, Since you were talking recently about that it's a sacrifice on Baby Yoda's part, that in any way is a hint towards his alignment or potential in the Force?
I think it's mainly just a level of maybe just understanding of how the Force works. I made this discussion a couple episodes ago where why Republic era Jedi or Republic era Sith wouldn't use it, where a Republic era Jedi kind of see life as something that comes and goes, and so they don't use it. It kind of breaches the form of attachment, whereas Sith won't use it because they're a bit selfish, and so they don't want to trade their life to save somebody else, and so they just won't do it. But
they can only drain.
Yeah, and
yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense.
And especially
Sith kind of narcissistic, probably more than selfish.
Yeah, and like especially in the Republic era of the Jedi Order, there's a lot of these rules that the Jedi have, like the Jedi Code that is enforced by like Yoda and Mace Windu and the rest of the Jedi Council, that are later kind of seen as a little bit convoluted, identified by Luke Skywalker and like an older Obi-Wan and an older Yoda even. And there's a lot more to it than just a code that defines whether you're good or evil. And I think that's very well kind of explained in these Disney stories in The Mandalorian as well.
That's really interesting. I've never drawn a line between Republic era Jedi and Old Republic Jedi, but just from the KOTOR comic books you let me borrow, Nick, it does seem like KOTOR Jedi maybe are a little less it feels like a little less strict, maybe because there's more of them, like more getting through the cracks, or there's more splits and ideologies, like there's
I mean they had a whole
splinter group,
the whole of people literally being sacrifice exile to go fight in the Mandalorian Wars. I think that goes way back, and I think you're right. When you look at the movie, especially in episode 4 and after, there is really like extremely like handful at most selection of Jedi, and I think even in the Clone Wars era where they're going down every day, there's still like infinitely more, I think, in that Old Republic era. So you get more points of view and more interpretation.
It's definitely Star Wars. I guess Star Wars is kind of like a story that generally takes place in a fallen society, almost like a dark age society where you don't have the technological prowess or kind of. I got a question for y'all, Cassie. Are y'all ready for the return of to a galactic power? A force-wielding Yoda in Mandalorian armor at the forefront of the Mandalorian Legion.
Are you talking a Yoda-lorian?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. When full Yoda-lorian, 300 years in the future, when he's in his physical, and the Mudhorn tribe has taken over. He's gonna have the dark saber. He's gonna have a jetpack, and he's gonna have Mandalorian.
Yeah, man, the reincarnation of Death Watch being held by little Yoda. Oh man,
I would be more excited for Baby Yoda to be a Mandalorian than like, oh wow, another Jedi,
Yes.
Yes.
1000%.
I mean, that would be such a fresh take to the universe that we just haven't really seen.
And I mean, and let's be, at the end of episode 8 or during episode 8 here, when the blacksmith tells him, like, hey, he's your charge now. Now, she doesn't say train him yet, because she's like, no, he would die. Maybe she doesn't realize the power that he has. She basically says, he's your, and then he gets the signet, and he has a clan of 2. Well, guess what that clan of 2 is going to do? They're going to get more. And then you got Filoni and Favreau controlling the Star Wars universe. And like, do we see a movie set in the far-flung future with adult baby in full
adult Yoda? My goodness.
Adult.
I love this. I love this piece of art that I saw. It's kind of poking at one of the Mandalorian pieces of art where it's got Mando and he's kind of like walking towards the camera, but instead of Mando, it's little Yoda and he's got Mandalorian full battle armor on, and he's just like staring you down.
The full Beskar armor.
Yeah.
I mean, what are you gonna do if a force wielder the level of a Yoda is in Beskar armor. And like, think about the athleticism you saw from old Yoda in Attack of the Clones. Not to say that it's all 1-to-1, but that's the only thing that we have to judge it by. Take that athleticism, put that with Mandalorian combat training and techniques, Beskar armor, force, throw in a dark saber for good measure. Oof. And you probably have the single most badass combat warrior that the universe, the galaxy.
You just hope Baby Yoda's a light sider, Like, if he were on the dark side, like, there's, like, no, the galaxy would just bow before Baby Yoda,
What we're going to see is in little Yoda voice, he's going to say, I can bring you in warm, or I can bring you in cold.
He'd probably switch up the sentence structure, though. But
yeah, bring you in cold, I can. But okay, so that you mentioned Cassian. Hopefully, he's the light side, and I think that's an important thing to point out, or maybe not important because I don't know if it's true, but it's how I feel. Is that like light doesn't mean Jedi, right? Light and dark that's a moral and ethical thing. That's like, are you a good person? How do you treat people? How do you treat those that are maybe not as fortunate as you? Do you help people? Do you have like a justice regardless of laws? Like, and so I agree with you. Hopefully he would be on the light side. I don't want anybody to think that we're saying that he should be a Jedi, because like you said, I don't.
Yeah, just aligned with the light side of the Force.
Maybe like a little gray. Maybe like I mean, that thing, I guess Jedi will kill you too if you.
Dark side skill tree be restricted by armor. So.
Actually, we've already seen a little gray. Let's not just as big as Force heal. We saw Baby Yoda do.
It's definitely a matter of perspective, right? Like, Baby Yoda is essentially on the Mandalorian side, and so he's interpreting, like, is this harming the Mandalorian? Is this helping the Mandalorian? And he kind of acts accordingly, right? But the Mandalorian isn't all that. I mean, he's I think mostly good. Like a D&D term, he's kind of like a chaotic good, where he's definitely made some decisions for the sake of, say, like money, but that doesn't mean that he's like made bad decisions to specifically get gain. Like, typically there's a higher order that he's still following, a part of being the Mandalorian order, but that's a matter of perspective. Like, to him, he's good. To other people, he could be an enemy.
From my point of view, the Jedi are evil.
Then you are truly lost. I can't do a Ewan McGregor. Yeah, it was interesting to get his name reveal, like, and to
wasn't that like a great way of establishing badass Grand Moff
Gideon
when he like just gives everybody his history.
Hey, wait, you know that? Like,
yeah,
I was really taken aback that they went that far in season 1, though. Like, Cassie and Coden, what did you guys think that they did the face and name reveal in the first season when they planned to do more episodes?
I was okay to learn his face and his name. It was kind of accidentally spoiled to me that his face was going to be revealed.
Oh, that sucks.
Yeah.
But I mean, I knew what Pedro Pascal looks like because I watched it.
So the fact that his mask would come.
Yeah, so I knew what he would look like, but it was just interesting to see the context of, like, it would come off, like, in that episode, just like he thought he was dead, and then is it IG-11 or IG-88? I honestly forget.
IG-88 is Empire Strikes Back one, so I think this is
Yeah, IG-11, it's interesting, like, it's portrayed by Taika Watiti, and he dressed up kind of like motion capture. He would have the like IG head on top, and like he was.
I actually think
acting around with them.
That is my favorite way to handle a CG character, is in the circus, Lord of the Rings style, where you have somebody like out there doing all of those movements. It just kind of gives it it feels like a performance more. I think it works.
It provides like an authenticity that the CG Yoda doesn't quite do.
No,
definitely not. I mean, you can feel that whenever you the movies in hindsight now.
Bro, Last Jedi Puppet Yoda
Loved it.
is so good.
Loved it.
Last Jedi Puppet Yoda is so good.
That's the only way you can do it, man. Like honestly, like to give you that feel and really. I mean, I'm honestly a sucker for fan service. I mean, just in the theater was just so awesome.
I mean, doing Baby Yoda as a puppet was, I mean, practical. Like that was the main thing. And there's that great story about Werner Herzog. You know, he was shooting his scene and he does it with the puppet Yoda. And then he comes back and they want him to shoot again, but Yoda's nowhere to be found. He's like, where's the puppet? We want to shoot one clean in case we end up doing CG. And he's like, whoa, don't be cowards. You have something here. This little puppet is magic. You have to use him. And sure enough, it took the world by storm. The one thing on the map I think important to point out is he was going to die and he was still about to blow IG's head off when the way to save his life was as simple as spraying a little Bacta spray on him. And but he was so sticking to the code and that until IG pointed out to him the logical loophole that, hey, I'm not alive, bro. I'm a robot.
Yeah, it's a
like
droid.
he was going to kill IG instead of show.
Yeah, I think for me when we saw the Mandalorian's face and we heard his name, the name was to be expected, and I think more. I don't think there was anything wrong with a Mandalorian's name being revealed, but with the face reveal, it was definitely built to be kind of like a second person telling of like, hey audience, this is who the Mandalorian is. And so to me, I don't think I really minded that it was done in season 1. It for me, when you're able to see the face of a particular character, it kind of helps build that relationship between viewer and character to like be able to see a little bit more inside their head and get their perspective, and which was a bit difficult through some of the episodes where you don't really know what's going on inside the Mandalorian's head because there's nothing to read. It's just his face mask, right?
You don't want the lost scenario question. Mystery, no answers. Like, so getting the name, getting the face, it makes you feel more intimate with that character. I'm in full agreement.
Yeah, I mean, you can't always just like, it's like Chekhov's gun. You can't just say, oh, it's against the code. Like, you can't see my face. It's like, you're going to see the face eventually.
Wait.
It's a good question
so
for another time.
Go on, Coden.
No, I'm just messing with Maz's quote from The Force Awakens.
Oh, yeah.
What did y'all think, as we're getting ready to wrap here, what did y'all think about the TIE fighter takedown by the Mandalorian? Because to me, that was a spectacular action sequence.
I love it.
Yeah, like,
and it was believable too. I liked how he didn't just like get it done successfully the first time. Like it took a couple tries. I liked how he even like struggled to get to the TIE fighter because it wasn't his first time he was in the jetpack, but he was definitely rusty with using one, right? So it took him a bit to get to that point. And it was surprising, I think, for the most part, to see him walk out. Not the Mandalorian, but
Moff Gideon.
Yeah, Moff Gideon. Thank you. It was a little bit weird to see him walk out of that crash, but it's not the first time we've seen a villain do that. We've seen Kylo Ren do that in Star Wars, so maybe there is like an airbag and some safety ratings with the TIE fighters.
They've really think about it. Even they crashed so bad in Force Awakens, and that's why I'm like, guys, you got to go check if Moff Gideon's dead.
Yeah.
What? Come on, it's a TIE.
If you don't see a villain die on screen, they're not dead. And even when you see the Emperor Palpatine die, and still not dead somehow. So
he's still not dead.
Yeah. Well, that's one of my main issues with Rise of Skywalker, that they chose to go Palpatine around, but that conversation for another day. I'll see this for the TIE fighter fight. What I love too is actually felt like real. Like it didn't like it was really well, I think Coden was speaking to this. It was really kind of grounded in its execution with him hooking Jeff hanging up to get up there. And but like how they did the special effects, I felt like you could really feel Marvel pedigree of Taika Watiti and of John Favreau, because that looked like just like top-notch filmmaking. And even though they didn't have the resources that they would have had on like a Marvel movie, they really sold it to where I was never taken out of it, never looked like, even down to the landing. And then I'm really glad that Moff Gideon didn't die, because when I saw that Darksaber in a live action Star Wars, ooh, yeah.
It's all due to Dave Filoni, I think. And Dave Favreau, he voiced Pre Vizsla in the Clone Wars, so like he has that Mandalorian connection going back years. So Filoni and Favreau really dig the Mandalorian lore, so you can feel that on screen. But yeah. No, I have no idea how they filmed that TIE fighter kerfluffle, like
it was on actual footage. They built a TIE fighter and they flew that. No, I'm just kidding.
They flew it in space.
Practical effects. Practical effects are key.
No, I love
have something here.
I do love how they kind of go back in time with the filming of the Mandalorian, though. I love how we were talking about with the Baby Yoda being a puppet too, where the special effects that they use are something that would be used back in the 60s, right, with the original Star Wars.
Yeah.
And I think that's what really makes a lot of Star Wars special, is just what they can do without the use of a ton of computers, and how it really contributes to the overall look and feel of a good Star Wars film.
Yeah, like even they're just like classic sparks flying everywhere.
Speaking of Taika Watiti, like his name is being thrown around as like a possible future director for a future Star Wars film or trilogy. He directed and actually starred in The Mandalorian. He directed the finale, Chapter 8, The Redemption, and he voiced and acted as IG-11, who is Quill's droid. Rest in peace, Quill.
Nurse droid.
He's a nurse droid. Yeah, he used to be an assassin, but he changed, and that shows all of us, no matter what we've done, can become better through programming. So
hey, I gotta go flag mine down to bring me some tea. Hang on.
All right. But what do you guys think of Taika Waititi taking on Star Wars? Because I feel like he really can nail comedy, as shown with the stormtroopers, and that the action with the TIE fighter. What do you guys think?
I really found that his comedy and his style really was. I enjoyed him from the first episode until the last, and particularly I enjoyed the episode that he directed. So I think that if he had a hand in future endeavors, I think it would go great. And I just personally would be in favor of that.
What we do in the shadows is hilarious. It's my first Taika Waititi that I ever. He is in the movie with one of the dudes from Flight of the Conchords, a couple guys actually, and he also directed it. But it is a mockumentary out of New Zealand about these vampires living in the modern age. It's intensely funny. And then Thor Ragnarok, which I thought I was kind of done with Marvel movies, and Thor Ragnarok was just awesome. It was fun, great action, all this stuff. That was him. So now he does Mando. I've heard Jojo Rabbit, his new movie that I want to see, is incredible. So he is, for me, he's reached that threshold where if his name is attached to something, I'll immediately become interested.
Yeah, I think with the handling of the humor of Star Wars 2, I actually really liked the exchange between the two scout troopers, because during the different pieces of Star Wars movies, you have the stormtroopers that are always talking about the latest Skyhopper model, T-15, T-16, and you got a couple of scout troopers now that are just kind of sitting in the middle of the desert, completely bored. And what would you think they do? Of course they pull their blasters out and start shooting an empty can. Like, it's hilarious.
Oh my goodness, and they couldn't shoot from not that far away. It was embarrassing.
Moff Gideon just killed the captain for interrupting him, and his head just drops. He's not like appalled. He's just like, oh shit.
Really?
Like, come on. It's just, it is. I don't think this is exactly. That is the funniest live action Star Wars scene there's ever been, in my opinion.
Yeah. And like it feels organic because it like builds, like you learn more about the Empire and you learn more about Moff Gideon. It's not like just out of nowhere, you know, it's building the characters in the world. So I like that.
Something too is like, you know, I bet these scout troopers, you know, they obviously know about the legacy of Darth Vader, right? And so something as bad tempered as Moff Gideon is just like, meh, it's just another Imperial general, right? Let's go ahead and wrap up, you guys. So if we want to go ahead, where can we find you guys? Just through SoundCloud or whatever. What's your guys' handles?
My Twitter is at Nick A. Ashton. That's also my Instagram. Our SoundCloud is for Mandalore. Also on Apple Podcasts under.
Yeah, and I'm on Twitter at T53 TBOB53.
Awesome.
Yeah, hit us up if you ever want to talk Star Wars. And thank you, Cassie and Conan, so much for having. This was a lot of fun.
Yeah, thank you for coming on. We love talking Star Wars, and you guys are guests on the Ebon Hawk. So thank you so much for gracing us with your presence. We really appreciate it. Thank you again for coming on. And like the.
All right, though, y'all. Y'all have a great night, and thanks.
Yeah, of course. Okay.
Yeah, thanks, guys. We'll catch you on the other side.
All right. Later.
You know, we want to thank for Mandalore, T-Bob, and Nick Ashton for joining us. And let's move on to our viewer question. We'll get to that right after the break.
So today's question we're going to be talking about comes from AJ Rosado from Instagram, and he says, "Hi, enjoy your podcast. Hard to get Revan content sometimes, so appreciate it. Question for next podcast, how do you feel about the buzz around Keanu Reeves playing Revan? Do you think he's a good fit? Why or why not?" I think that Keanu Reeves is amazing. He's having like a Keanu-sance, like with John Wick, and he was in Toy Story 4, and he's just been in many films, but especially seeing him as action role in John Wick, it was amazing to see. I think he's a great actor, and he's good at what he does. He does look a lot like Revan, but personally, I see Revan as a bit younger, so he wouldn't be my first choice. But if Disney did end up going that route, I would be on board, and I think it would be great if they took something that a lot of the fans want. But I just don't see him as my personal choice for Revan, and I'm still kind of figuring out who my first choice for Revan is.
I think that a lot of people, they've got this Keanu Reeves craze with his mic drop of Cyberpunk and his performance with some of his Toy Story role and John Wick role. When I think Keanu Reeves is a Jedi, it brings me back to his film 47 and Ronin, which is mixed on whether you like that film or not, but it is a samurai film, and Keanu Reeves is acting as Ronin in this instance, but he does have skill as a samurai, and there's a lot of correlation between the Republic Jedi's combat style being a little more of a katana base, which is the samurai fighting style with the katana. And so I think there's a lot of connections there that people make, as Keanu would make a great Jedi. And I think he would make a great Jedi, but I'm also a little bit on board, Cassia, with maybe not Revan or a young Revan, maybe an older Revan, if Revan had the chance to actually, grow old, which he is a bit cut short with the novel, the Revan novel.
But I mean, I wouldn't be opposed to it. I just think I would find someone maybe more in their 30s or early 40s.
There's a particular
but
energy.
Nothing against Keanu Reeves at all. Like, he's healthier at his age than I will ever be in my life, you know? So I think definitely an older Revan.
Yeah, there's particular energy that Revan has in the KOTOR games, like with his wit, with his humor, that's a little bit boyish. And so Keanu Reeves is, at least I think mentally, is more of a tired mentally, not physically, but like he's very efficient with how he communicates. And so I think that is what would be the hardest translation between Keanu Reeves and Revan. But I mean, Keanu Reeves is a great actor. Maybe he can just nail it off the spot. We don't know. We haven't seen it yet.
Yeah. Maybe he could be a Revan who, after he realizes he's been reprogrammed, he can kind of have some of that humor, but with more depth, kind of a grizzled, like, he's been through war and has to reconcile his war and Sith past with his reprogrammed Jedi present. So I think he could definitely be an older Revan, you know? Just maybe not how I see KOTOR, Knights of the Old Republic 1 and 2 Revan.
And Bastila is so young too, right? Like, it'd be weird for old, Keanu Reeves and like a 20-year-old Bastila.
Oh boy. Yeah, because like I think sometimes like in the games they say Bastila's supposed to be 19. And I'm like, I respectfully disagree, because if you look at it, like, Revan's supposed to be 35, and that's a little bit it's a lot of an age gap, I would say. So I always in my mind kind of age up Bastila to be like 23, 25, and then like Revan kind of like 35, like at most, but I probably 30 or early 30s at the most.
Mm-hmm.
So Star Wars is all about these age gaps. I don't know why, but that's how it is.
In the Phantom Menace, the age gap was definitely drastic with Anakin being 9 and Padme being 14. It wasn't as bad as they were older, just because at that point they were both mostly adults. But Bastila and KOTOR is still kind of,
and like, especially because of her like Jedi, how she's been raised as a Jedi, so it also kind of makes her a bit more young and naive in some ways. So I'm just like, let's have her be older, so it's kind of, less
awkward, weird,
kind of disturbing in some ways, so like just kind of have a little bit of an easier like dynamic,
and it wouldn't be that big of a deal if the Revan was younger too, like if he was in his early 30s or late 20s with just the regular age Bastila, like that wouldn't be as bad. But with like a nearing 50-year-old Keanu Reeves, that would be a bit odd.
Yeah, I mean, they can always age up the characters, but maybe after the sequel trilogy that they've had like 20s and 30s characters, maybe they would want to age them up. But I feel like Star Wars, it's kind of like about young adults become adults. And so I think like maybe just staying with that age like works best, because that's kind of how it was like in the original game. But we'll see. So thank you for your question, AJ Rosado _ and I think we are gonna get ready to close out this episode. This has been Cassia,
and this has been Coden, and you can find us at twitch.tv/Konabon for various Star Wars games streaming. And you can also, as AJ Rosado done, you can either email us or message us from the Ebonhawk podcast at gmail.com, or you can do so on Instagram.
And our Instagram is Ebonhawk Podcast. And our podcast can be found on SoundCloud and iTunes at the Ebonhawk. Our intro and outro themes were composed by Alistair Shorman. He can be found at alistairsounds.wixsite.com/alistairsounds, and our transition music was composed by Christian Walker. He can be found at christianwalkermusic.com.
As a reminder, we had T-Bob and Nick Ashton with us. They're from For Mandalore, and we discovered them on SoundCloud, so feel free to give them a listen. And
this has been episode 13 of the Ebon Hawk. Take care of yourselves, meatbags. You'll be back soon. Bye for now.